In this presentation, I'll cover more details about data types and their sizes. This presentation will be a bit different than the other ones in that I'm going to use remote access to also demonstrate how you can use remote access on your own. I'll describe the SizeOf operator and how it's used in C. I'll demonstrate how to develop code locally on your machine and then transfer the file to the server so you can compile and test on the Linux servers. I'll do that using Windows to begin with, and I'll follow with a demonstration on a Mac. I think this will be a useful strategy for you, not only for the labs, but also if you're studying on your own and you come up with a question like, how does this work, or what does this do? You can write the source file on your machine using any text editor, transfer it to the server, and then compile and run the program to get the answer. Here's the situation. Let's say that you're reviewing your course workbook and you want to find more information about a certain topic. In this case, you notice that when we covered data types in class, I simply gave you the number of bytes for each type. You notice from reading the textbook that the SizeOf operator will tell you how to get the number of bytes for a specific type. So to test it out, you write your own source file. When finished, save the file as a .c file and then, using the program called WinSCP, you can open a new session and type your username followed by @ and then remote.engg.ucalgary.ca and click login. You might get a pop-up that says, do you want to authorize this? You can click yes on that and then enter your password. Now you'll see the WinSCP transfer window. Go to the directory where you saved the file, your source file, and select the directory where you want to transfer the file to on the remote server. Okay, now that the file is located on the server, if you connect using a terminal, you'll be able to access that file and compile it and test it on the server. On Windows, you can use the program called PuTTY for doing that. When you first open PuTTY, you'll see a window like this. In the host name section, you can put your username, @ remote.engg.ucalgary.ca and click open. It might ask you again, do you want to authorize this? You can click yes and enter your password. Once you enter your password, you'll be prompted with a terminal that looks like this. You can move to the directory where you saved that file. In my case, it was ENCM339. And you can see I have the file here, sizeof.c. And I want to compile it and see the results. You compile using the command gcc and then the file, the source file that you want to compile. That'll create a program called a.out. To run it, type /a.out. And here's the result. You can compare the source file to the results side by side and see that the SizeOf operator takes a type as an argument and returns the number of bytes that that type uses. In this case, char uses 1, int uses 4, float uses 4, and doubles and pointers use 8. A pointer stores an address, and we'll learn more about that later. In this case, because it's 8 bytes long, we know that it's a 64-bit machine because each byte has 8 bits. So in total we have 8 times 8 bits equals 64 bits. And for you Mac users, you can use any Mac text editor. I'll use TextEdit, and I'll change the format to make plain text and enter your program. Once you've finished, save the file as a .c file. And now, use the application called Fugu to transfer to the server. In the connect to, you'll put remote.engg.ucalgary.ca. In the username field, you'll put your username that you use to connect to the Linux machines in the lab. It'll prompt you for your password. And now you can drag and drop your file into a target directory. Once the transfer is complete, you'll need to connect to the server using a terminal. To find the terminal, open a Finder window, click on Applications, and select Utilities, and then Terminal. Once the terminal opens, enter the command SSH followed by your username at remote.engg.ucalgary.ca and enter your password. Now you're connected to the Linux machines in the lab. You'll be able to compile and test your program. In those demonstrations, we saw how to use the SizeOf operator. It's important to remember that although SizeOf is used like a function, it isn't. When I say that SizeOf is an operator and not a function, that means that the value is determined as it's compiled, not while the program is being run. So, for example, if in my code I have SizeOfInt, the compiler will convert that into the number of bytes that are used to store an int. On our machines, that's 4. The second thing to know about SizeOf is that it can work on variables as well as types. So if I declare a variable I as an integer, I can say the size of int, and that'll be converted into a 4 because there's 4 bytes to store an integer. But I can also give the variable I. So in the example, if I declare an integer I can use SizeOf I or SizeOfInt, and they'll both return the same thing. In this presentation, we looked at the SizeOf operator in C, and it's also available in C++. SizeOf can operate on a type or a variable, and the compiler will convert it into the number of bytes used to store that type or variable. While we learned about the SizeOf operator, I also showed you how to access the engineering servers remotely using Windows or Mac. That may be useful for you if you ever wanted to write a short program to figure out how something works or what something does. In the next presentation, we'll look more closely at the scanf function, and we'll also cover the address of operator and pointers in more detail.